Good afternoon and welcome to the California Privacy Protection Agency public comment session on the proposed regulations for the delete request and opt-out platform, or DROP, system requirements. My name is Tom Kemp and I serve as the agency's executive director. Today is Tuesday, June 10th, 2025 at approximately 1 p.m. I am located at the California Cannabis Appeals Panel hearing room at 400 R Street in Sacramento, California. The hearing is also being broadcast online to allow for virtual participation. Here with me today are Phil Laird, our agency's general counsel, Tamara Colson, assistant chief counsel for the agency's legal division, deputy director Megan White, and Serena Marzian with our public affairs division. Today is the last day the agency will be accepting public comments orally or in writing on these draft regulations as proposed in the notice package. I sincerely appreciate everyone's participation in the process and look forward to listening to your comments today. Now I'll turn it over to Phil for a few housekeeping matters before we start.
Thanks, Tom. Just a few points to make before we get going. During this hearing, we will listen to and record the comments from members of the public about the proposed regulations. You may also submit written public comments to staff here physically by emailing them to regulations@cppa.ca.gov or by mailing them to the agency's Sacramento office. All comments are due today and written comments must be received by 5:00 p.m. Please note that oral and written comments are treated equally, so you are only required to submit your comment by one method for it to be considered and responded to in the final rulemaking record. Now, given the number of participants in attendance today, we will begin by limiting comments to 3 minutes per speaker. Once all participants have had an opportunity to make a 3-minute comment, we will allow speakers to make additional comments if they were unable to complete their remarks during the first round. If there are still members of the public waiting to make a comment at 3:00 p.m., we will continue the hearing until everyone has had a chance to make their comment. Otherwise, we will conclude the hearing at 3:00 as stated on the notice. So in terms of how you participate, if you are attending in person and wish to speak, please wait for me to call for public comment, then move toward the podium and form a line. It is helpful if you identify yourself when you begin speaking, but this is entirely voluntary, and you are free to refer to yourself with a pseudonym or not give a name. We will first take comments from those in person and then move to those who are joining us virtually. If you are here in person, please hold the microphone very close to your mouth and speak directly into the mic so everyone participating remotely can hear you and so your remarks can be recorded in the meeting record. If you are attending via Zoom and you wish to speak, please use the raise your hand function, which is in the reaction feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you're joining by phone, please press *9 on your phone to show the moderator that you are raising your hand. Our moderator will call your name when it is your turn and request that you unmute yourself to make your comment. When your comment is completed, the moderator will mute you. As is the case with in-person participation, it is helpful if you identify yourself, but this is entirely voluntary. Now, in the event of technical difficulties and you're attending remotely and experience an issue with the remote meeting, for example, audio dropping or something of that nature, please email info@cppa.ca.gov. That's info@cppa.ca.gov. This email account will be monitored throughout the meeting. If there is an issue that affects the remote meeting, we will pause the meeting to let our technical staff work on fixing the issue. Now, we will not be responding to the public comments or discussing the requirements in the proposed regulations during today's hearing. But in accordance with the Administrative Procedures Act, all public comments submitted during the comment period, including the oral comments from today's hearing, will be responded to in the agency's final statement of reasons later in the rulemaking process. After considering the public comments, the agency may propose amendments to the original proposed text of the regulations. If the agency proposes such amendments, each person who has provided a public comment will receive notice of the proposed amendments to the text. To receive this notice, however, you will need to provide us with an email or mailing address as part of your public comment. I just want to echo Mr. Kemp to say thank you so much for being here today. We truly value your comments and carefully consider all the feedback we receive. And so with no further ado, I'm going to turn it over now to Ms. Marzian, who's serving as our moderator today.
Thank you so much, Phil. We are now open for public comment. You'll have 3 minutes to state your public comment, and I'll give you a 30-second warning. We'll first take comments from attendees in the room. If you'd like to make a comment, please form a line by the podium. We will now be taking comment from virtual attendees. To make a public comment at this time, please raise your hand by using a raised hand feature or by pressing *9 if you're joining us by phone. I'll call your name and unmute you when it's your turn to speak. Benjamin Isaacson, I'm going to unmute you now. You'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Ben Isaacson. I am the principal at In-House Privacy, Inc. We're a law practice based in California.
Benjamin, you can go ahead and speak. You are unmuted.
Thank you. My name is Ben Isaacson. I'm the principal with In-House Privacy, Inc. We are a law practice based in California. These comments reflect my own. They do not reflect any particular clients of ours. We will be submitting written comments, but I'd like to summarize a few key policy points.
Benjamin, do you mind just holding? The room can't hear you. One second. Okay, Benjamin, if you can begin again.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great, thank you. So the first policy point is, due to the statutory penalties inherent in SB 362 Delete Act that directly apply to the drop mechanism, we recommend that there be a cure period or at least a warning system that the CPPA adopt as part of these regulations to allow for erroneous applications of the drop, at least within the first year plus of implementation, to avoid the complications of potential statutory penalties where data brokers are operating in good faith, attempting to comply, but do run into errors or mistakes in their application. Another potential regulation that should be added to the scope of the drop, as well as the definition of data broker, are intermediaries that provide services to data brokers that should be exempt from registration with the drop. And in particular, the examples are advertising and marketing agencies and software as a service platforms. These entities make available third-party data, but they do so under a service provider agreement with their clients. So they are directly required to procure the third-party data on their behalf. They might provide that data as part of a platform to use for things like email marketing or call centers. But they shouldn't be included as part of the definition of data broker. And a number of companies are very confused about whether they do need to register and participate in the drop and apply the deletion and potentially suppression files before they share that data with clients. And then another area where there's confusion is whether or not consent, in this case we'll just call it affirmative consent, would override an individual's participation in the drop. And so the example being a consumer registers with the drop and then later on they participate in a sweepstakes or some other incentive program where there is an explicit consent provided to sell their data to data brokers, and in which case those data brokers would seemingly not be able to use that data because of the individual's participation in the drop, regardless of whether they had affirmative consent and any evidence of capturing that after the drop. And then the last comment I'm going to make today is related to just the overall technical requirements as part of the drop regulations. That again, we are providing written comments that go into more detail, but that don't necessarily reflect the interests of small businesses. Many of the data brokers on the registry are small businesses that don't necessarily maintain databases in the traditional sense that you would think of it with data brokers. These are companies that might procure a list from one data broker or multiple data brokers and then combine them and pass them off to their clients for use with their marketing or other campaigns. But they're not necessarily sophisticated in the same way that I think that some of the assumptions made in the drop, in particular, some of the requirements to engage in data hygiene and combining data attributes or different data, data points about, mobile ad IDs or other email addresses that they might possess across disparate networks, where, some of the comments that we're making are just to make it more simple in terms of how the drop is applied to lists that they might possess at that moment, but not necessarily to create databases and technical infrastructure in order to support some of the more complicated aspects of the drop. So thank you for your time today, and I yield my time.
Thank you for your comment.
All right, thank you so much. If you would like to make a comment and you're joining us virtually, to make a public comment at this time, please raise your hand using the raised hand feature or by pressing *9 if you're joining us by phone. I'll call your name and unmute you when it's your turn.
As we approach the end of our time for this hearing, 3:00 p.m., we just want to say thank you to those that joined us today and participated in this comment period, as well as those submitting their written comments. We, again, really appreciate your participation in this rulemaking process. Thank you for your time, and that concludes this hearing for the California Privacy Protection Agency.